So how do I teach with babies and toddlers or with dad working at home?
You've got babies and toddlers and dad working at home.
It's good from a young age to have the babies learn to play by themselves. So using the pack and play and giving them activities in there to play and then switching them out and teaching them to play by themselves from a young age really will help them as they grow older as well, because they can then transition that to doing school by themselves, and you can give them a work page to do and they can sit there and do that by themselves. And with dad working at home, right now we're in a situation where it's not, the noise level isn't that much of a problem, so we don't have that issue to deal with, but just saying don't go up to daddy right now because daddy's working, and you need to ask before you go show something to daddy or go talk to him. That's been helpful.
And I do think teaching children to be quiet when you tell them to.
Yeah,
that's one of the most basic things, is you need to teach basic obedience. And some of the most basic obedience, if dad's working at home, is you have to be quiet now.
Yeah.
And I think with young children, I think one thing that we found helpful is, short tasks, short activities, and doing it in times where they're not tired, and just planning a time of the day to do it that's going to be easiest for them to do it, as well as, maybe not forcing it if it's a day that's not going so well.
And with I had 3 children. They were each like 18, 19 months apart, so they were fairly close together. And I found it helpful, like when I was working with Joshua on teaching him to write, having pre-writing activities for the younger children to do, because the younger ones want to do what the older ones are doing. They're asking to do school before you want them to, I think is pretty much a norm across homeschooling families. And so, like, having them do pre-reading activities, pre-writing activities, and having activities that you only bring out during school time. So they're doing something useful. They feel like they're doing what the older siblings are doing, and having it something they can do only during school time makes it kind of special. They feel like they're doing school, even if it's, like we had them learn to trace shapes, the wipe off things where, they're connecting the dots before they're able to write. Sometimes it's, just coloring or different kinds of things.
Another thing also is it's helpful to have, if you have 2 older children, then you can work with one of them and you can have the other one sit with the younger child and play with them or work with them. And that's a good learning skill for both the older child and the younger child, that they're learning to teach them, and they're learning to be kind and patient, and the younger child is learning to play with someone who's not their own age as well.
And they're learning contentment. It's really important to teach your children to be content, even if they're doing something they don't really want to do.
I mean, the other thing I would say is, especially, the comment I made before, is you have to teach them to be quiet. The other thing, you should have them be outside part of the day. There is an appropriate time where children should make noise and run around. There's an appropriate time for them to physically move around. And so you shouldn't put your children in a way where they can't succeed. Right? If you make a little boy his age sit still for 8 hours, it's going to drive him insane. And it's appropriate that there's times where he runs around. There's times that he's a lot louder than you might like. But what you want to do is control it so that those times are scheduled. So one of the ways you make it so that he can be at home or you can do homeschooling while dad's working is, at times, go outside and let them run around and scream.
Mm-hmm. And if they have trouble sitting still while you're doing read-alouds, giving them something to do with their hands can be helpful. Like when sometimes we'd have them work on coloring pictures that went with our history timeline when we were reading about history. Or, I remember the boys were building things with matchsticks when we would do read aloud sometimes. So there's different, you have to be creative and think outside the box. I would have the kids fold clothes when we were doing read alouds, or I would have the children read to me, and so they would fold laundry. It's a way to, how to get things done while you're doing school.
The question is, how do I get anything else done if I'm homeschooling my children?
That is a valid question, especially with young children. I think realizing that involving them in what you're doing is a big part of homeschooling, that really helps. Like, if you need to clean the house, give them a cloth each, give them a spray bottle. Most kids love using spray bottles. Get them to clean, get them to clean the house with you. If you're cooking, get them to cook with you. Do things simpler and involve them in daily life that you already need to be doing, and it'll take longer, but they'll learn as well as you getting things you need to get done. And then teaching them to be disciplined enough to play by themselves, to sit down and look at a book and not get up till you tell them. That's important too, just teaching them character that it allows you to get things done when you can't do it with them.
And one thing to keep in mind is, like Dan was saying, it's hard for young children, some older children, to sit still for long periods of time. And so we intersperse the chores with the schooling. So between subjects, we would do some chores. You have to be creative. There's books out there that can help moms organize their day.
Another thing is, remember what's important. That's what's really key to it. You say get things done. If you've taught your child something important and you've taught him, even to obey, which is better than that he learns how 2 + 2 = 4. If you've taught these things, you have gotten the most important things done. And if you go, but wait, there's some dirt on the floor and it would be better if the floor would be clean. Sure, it would be better than the floor would be clean, but is it better to prepare your child for life, or is it for the floor to be at a certain level of cleanliness? And this is true. You can do simple meals, you can do more complicated meals. It's wonderful to do more complicated meals, but sometimes you go, for my child's sake, it's better to do a simpler meal. And so a lot of it has to do with priorities and getting something done. Getting the schooling of your children done is like the biggest thing. The rest of them, in the end, you can have fancier meals once your children move out of their house.